Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show, everybody. It is Tuesday. We got a lot of stories to go through. We got the RNC we're going to talk about. We've got Donald Trump's Postmaster General getting grilled. It's awesome. We'll talk about that. We've got some memes, some fun memes about Kimberly Guilfoyle. We get the Liberty U story. We got an update on that. We got an update on Jacob Blake. And what's going on with him and his father, all that stuff. It's a day. It's a day. A lot of stuff to get to. Why don't we dive in? Of course, right before we do that, I just want to urge you to like and share the stream if you haven't already. If you're watching this live, I do apologize for coming at you a little bit late. Those of you who do not watch this live or are not watching this live or are listening to it, just completely disregarded. We're always on time. Tremendous. Very tremendous. Okay, anyway. So let's get into it. Let's start out with 6 minutes of terror. All right. With the DNC convention all over, and the Democrats basically putting it out there that they're not going to really change a whole lot. Let's check in with the Republican National Convention, which started yesterday. I'm sure, of course, that they will be calmly speaking about, the merits of conservative government, conservatism in general, and or small government, and probably some freedom and liberty. You know what? Let's just check in on them, see how they're doing.
They want to destroy this country and everything that we have fought for and hold dear. They want to steal your liberty, your freedom. They want to control what you see and think and believe so that they can control how you live. They want to enslave you to the weak, dependent, liberal, victim ideology to the point that you will not recognize this country or yourself.
Holy shit. Wow. Okay. All right. So look, what made it kind of worse is that she's yelling at an empty room. Yeah, there's nobody there. I mean, there's a reason nobody's there. It's because of coronavirus. But she's yelling at an empty room. It's kind of weird. I mean, it's almost like because you ever watch V for Vendetta, right? It's like that fascist TV broadcaster, right? Now, the thing that, of course, kind of squares that is she used to be a Fox News contributor. So, understand, though, this is kind of the theme of the Republican Party. I kept reading articles about how nobody could really match her, quote-unquote, energy, right? That she dialed it up to 11. Dialed what up? Like, again, she was screaming at an empty room. But look, this is what you're going to get with the Republican Party, right? And so, I had the misfortune of watching that whole thing. And yes, there was some, you are tremendous, you're exceptional, whatever, but the Democrats are horrible and will completely destroy the entire country if you let them. Wow. Okay. But look, this is what a reactionary fascist party looks like. Okay. She speaks about the victimhood ideology, but again, a lot of that clip was her talking about how Republicans are going to be victimized by the Democrats. I know. And in case you think, of course, that's the only part of the speech that I'm like cherry picking out. No. I actually do want to show you a little bit more.
Biden, Harris, and the rest of the socialists will fundamentally change this nation. They want open borders, closed schools, dangerous amnesty, and will selfishly send your jobs back to China while they get rich. They will defund, dismantle, and destroy America's law enforcement. When you are in trouble and need police, don't count on the Democrats. Rioters must not be allowed to destroy our cities. Human sex drug traffickers should not be allowed to cross our border. The same socialist policies which destroyed places like Cuba and Venezuela must not take root in our cities and our schools. If you want to see the socialist Biden-Harris future for our country, just take a look at California.
You know what's ironic is that a lot of the stuff that she was actually talking about has happened under the Trump administration. Riots happening in cities, right? Under the Trump administration, right? Okay, massive economic recession under the Trump administration. Coronavirus under the Trump administration. I'm not saying that coronavirus couldn't have happened under a Democratic administration, but I am saying with 100% certainty that they would have handled it a lot better. That's not even a question. But understand, again, you go back to the fear mongering, right? That's all it was. Oh, Biden, Harris, socialist with their socialist agenda. They're coming for your freedoms. And, look at that horrible place that's California. California's, I believe, the third largest economy in the world. Or at least in the northern hemisphere or whatever. The pretty big economy, right? Doing really well. And yes, there are problems, and some of those problems are inherent in extractionist capitalism, but it doesn't have anything to do with socialism in there. Climate change is part of the reason that California is on fire right now, literally. But if you want to do something about, that, well, the solutions, she would call socialism. And so that's, of course, Green New Deal would cut down on climate change. So there's all that, right? There's all that fear mongering. And again, understand that that's like a Pavlovian response when you start saying socialism, communism. And it's ironic because here you have Joe Biden, who's the most conservative Democrat in the race, right? In the primary. Other than Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg, I think, was a little bit more conservative. And when it comes to Democrats, it's almost as if the people who warned us that, hey, Republicans, they're going to attack Bernie Sanders, for example, the certain Democratic socialist from Vermont as a socialist. And so we need to pick somebody who's more conservative so they won't attack him as a socialist. Oh, right. Oops. It turns out they're calling him a socialist. I know. Weird. It's almost as if we saw that one coming. Look, understand though, this is a reactionary party. This is what a reactionary party sounds like. Anything the Democrats do is met with socialism, communism. We need to protect our freedoms. We need to protect ourselves against the other. And so that's what they sound like. So we have a reactionary party, and we actually have a conservative party now. We have two very conservative parties. It's just one is even more conservative, reactionary, and actually more proto-fascist. And so interesting how they keep talking about how what's socialism, right? No, what we need to do is we need to stop pretending the Republican Party is full of reasonable, rational actors. They're not. They're not. And that, we as Democrats can court them. It's funny because there's a recent, a brand new, actually, CBS poll that actually says that 5% of Republicans are planning to vote for Joe Biden in this election. They're capturing less Republicans than Obama with 8%, Hillary Clinton with somewhere around 6 to 7%. And so, the entire plan to use the Lincoln Project, Never Trump Republicans, to focus on them, right? Instead of focusing on the progressive base by actually embracing progressive priorities such as Medicare for all. They're even backing away from from a public option, from what I've been, reading. And so what have you done? I mean, have you brought in any Republicans, from the Republican Party? Only 5%, less than Hillary Clinton. Maybe going more conservative was not the right way to go, because it seems to not be having results, right? With only 5% of Republicans saying that they'll vote for Biden, which means 95% of Republicans are going to go. It's almost as if that Lincoln Project is a little bit of a grift. So here we have, again, a conservative party and a reactionary party. And look, the Republicans are basically one Reichstag fire away from becoming full fascist. And again, our choices are not great. I just spelled them out. Conservative, decent, conservative party that's okay on social issues. And then you've got the fascist party. I know it seems like it should be, but it's not really a tough choice for me. My vote's not going to go for the fascist party. And so where yours goes, well, that's not my job to tell you. My job is just to lay out the facts and to show you exactly what you're doing, what your choices are in this coming election. All right. So let's have a little bit more fun. So last night was the first night of the Republican convention, and former Fox News host Kimberly Guilfoyle set the tone by screaming at an empty podium, an empty room, I should say, for about 6 minutes. And so following that, the internet is going to decide, it's going to do what it does best. It's going to meme the shit out of her. So let's start out with some fun memes, right? Actually, you know what? Let's do the video first.
They want to destroy this country and everything that we have fought for and hold dear. They want to steal your liberty, your freedom. They want to control what you see and think and believe so that they can control how you live. They want to enslave you to the weak, dependent, liberal, victim ideology to the point that you will not recognize this country or yourself.
That never gets old. So, like I said, there were a lot of memes involving first Rita Repulsa, and it was a villain of Power Rangers, and Coke. Not Coca-Cola, but Coke. So let me show you some of those. Just have a little bit of fun. Rita Repulsa, right? You're just going to go with that. After 10,000 years, I'm free. I love it. It's great. We also have this one, of course, comparison. I almost feel like they're kind of doing Rita a little dirty on this one. Maybe it could have been, something different, but we've got Wicked Witch. That's a pretty good one. Kimberly was high AF. She was practically defying gravity. Again, that's a little bit of a reference to the Coke. And this has nothing to do with Don Jr., who had his own hashtag that was going. We've got, I'd say that's pretty self-explanatory right here. Okay. I think you get the gist. And then I just like that one. That was pretty good. Scream. Nailed it. So look at those are some good memes. There's plenty of other fantastic ones as well. But what are people saying? What are people saying about this? Well, one person says Kimberly Guilfoyle yelling like the North Korean propaganda lady. So that's real good response online. Another person asks, why is Kimberly Guilfoyle yelling? Isn't it an empty room? It is an empty room. Yes, I know, coronavirus, right? At least they didn't pack people. Could you imagine if they packed people into a room with COVID-19 going on. I mean, look, that's what they tried to do with the Donald Trump Tulsa rally, and it didn't go well because not a lot of people showed up. A lot less people showed up than should have, and of course that made Donald Trump very upset. And Donald Trump, by the way, is supposed to speak every single night of the convention. Every single night, they are the party of Donald Trump. Going to that, one person says Kimberly Guilfoyle going full fascist. I've made that comparison as well. Another person asks, did Kimberly Guilfoyle just claim her Puerto Rican mother was an immigrant when Puerto Rico is part of America? And so, look, that's part of the speech that I didn't show you. She says, I'm an immigrant. And my mother was an immigrant from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. Okay. That's, I mean, yes, it's a territory, but she's an American citizen. Puerto Rico is part of America. I know, right? But see, here's the thing, right? Those are facts. Facts are not allowed at the RNC. Remember, President Trump had no idea Puerto Ricans were American citizens. Remember when they got hit with Hurricane Maria? And he's like, oh, I got to send help to Puerto Rico. Here we go. America's helping out. No, that is America. That's a part of America. It's a territory. Yes, the people that live there are American citizens. They have representation in our government. And in fact, they should have more because I believe they should have full statehood. And so they get some representation, but they certainly don't get enough. They don't get what they should have. And so, nonetheless, I'm going to go there. It's an island surrounded by water, big water. And I'm going to go there. I'm going to throw paper towels at them. And then if they ask for more, I'm going to call them ungrateful. And that's exactly what he did. And so, yeah, either he doesn't know that they're Americans or doesn't consider them to be Americans. And of course, we all know probably the reason why they're brown, primarily. And yet, Kimberly Guilfoyle, simping for white supremacy. It's really kind of amazing how that whole thing works, right? And what's interesting is that, again, if you listen to this speech, she went on and on about socialism, bad. When, look, her party's pushing fascism. And to her, I think fascism is more acceptable to them than socialism. And understand, like, the Democratic Party is not socialist, right? They're more neoliberal than anything else. But again, Republicans must scream and fearmonger about socialism because it's really all they have. It's basically like that word has stopped having meaning to them. It's just a catch-all for somebody you don't like. And like, to give you an example of that, right? My wife's in a grocery store. Okay. And she was hearing a boomer complain to a cashier about how wearing masks in the store was socialism. Wearing masks has nothing to do with a system of economics where workers own the means of production. It's got nothing to do with that. So, but understand, they don't understand what that word actually means. It has just been pounded into their head that socialism means anything that we don't agree with, anything that we don't like politically. And actually, what's funny is they don't know that one of the most popular programs in America, Medicare and Social Security, kind of socialist. Just saying. And so it is one of those catch-alls, and that's what they talk about all the time. And so the whole RNC, the whole Trump presidency is just meme-worthy because of how cringe it really is, how bad it is, and how these people that are in positions of power are just the dumbest people on the planet. Okay. So let's switch gears. Let's go to Postmaster General. So President Trump's Postmaster General's in the hot seat as House Democrats have decided to challenge him on his destruction of the Postal Service. So now the second public hearing in a week featured a few fun exchanges, including how he's got no idea what the post office actually does, how it actually runs. As you're going to see, Katie Porter tries to take him to task on that. Take a look.
What is the cost of a first-class postage stamp?
55 cents.
Just wanted to check. What about to mail a postcard?
I don't know, ma'am.
You don't know the cost to mail a postcard?
I don't.
What if I want to mail you said 55 cents for a first-class stamp, but what if it's like one of those greeting cards that's a square envelope? Then what is the postage?
I'll submit that I know very little about a postage stamp.
And what is the weight limit? You are more in the shipping logistics business. What's the weight limit for priority mail?
70 pounds.
And what is the starting rate for U.S. Post Office, USPS priority mail?
The starting rate for what?
USPS priority mail.
Starting weight, 14 ounces.
No, the rate, the price.
I don't know.
Do you know about, within 1 million or so, can you tell me how many people voted by mail in the last presidential election?
No, I cannot.
To the nearest 10 million? Is that a no, Mr. Dejoy?
I would be guessing, and I don't want to guess.
Okay, so Mr. Dejoy, I'm concerned. I'm glad you know the price of a stamp, but I'm concerned about your understanding of this agency.
All right, so look, those are good questions. Hey, I don't work in the post office, so I don't really know the answer to a lot of these questions either, right? But the difference is that he's the Postmaster General. He should probably know the basic information about the post office, right? About the services that his office is supposed to do. Now, later on, of course, she began asking him about, okay, you're making some changes, right? So you don't know what you're doing, but you're ordering all these changes. And he says, well, I'm not ordering any changes. What are you talking about? It's not my job. Okay, well, if it's not your job as the Postmaster General, then whose job is it? Who ordered those changes at the post office? And of course, those changes included ending unemployment. I'm sorry, not unemployment, but ending overtime, so that people who work there cannot actually get things done as they had before. Removing sorting machines, making it actually take longer to get things done, to actually get the mail out, which causes massive delays. And so he couldn't answer that question either. Who ordered that? I don't know. I don't know who ordered that. So you don't know who ordered that, and yet these things are happening under your watch. So look, are you incompetent in your job? Is basically where that line of questioning eventually ends up. And so he has proven that he is incompetent at this job. And so he clearly doesn't know how this works. And so he also doesn't give a damn about running it effectively. But understand, right? That's on purpose. See, here's the thing. The post office is not supposed to be a business. It's not supposed to make a profit, right? It's supposed to get enough income to fund services, because that's the whole point. The post office is a service that is constitutionally mandated. Now, if it were not required, and this is why it's in trouble, if it were not required by Congress to pre-fund about 75 years of retirement benefits, it would be able to do its services, right, to perform those services, even at a time of crisis like coronavirus, effectively, and to do so in a way that is cost effective, without needing an infusion of cash from Congress. Problem is, as I said before, it's stuck in a position of where it has to pre-fund those retirement benefits, a burden that no for-profit company can certainly bear, and certainly no service that is not for profit. And so those are unique circumstances that are crushing the effectiveness of the post office. So they're not able to do this, right? And so, again, the thing about these Republicans, Dejoy specifically, is that he doesn't want to run the post office effectively. The action he's taken, which is eliminating sorting machines, slowing down the mail, eliminating overtime, again, making it more difficult for people to do their jobs, as well as to afford to pay their bills. I talked about a former postal carrier in Buffalo, Minnesota, I believe, who said, look, without that overtime, I can't pay the bills. I can't feed my family. So I had to quit and get another job. There were also people that were saying that are pretty high up in the post office chain that are saying that, hey, basically we're being ruined from the inside. Okay. We cannot do the things that we're supposed to do. We're not allowed to be able to do the things that we're supposed to do. And it's almost like they're getting sabotaged. Right. And so they don't want to do this, and they don't want to run this effectively. And the reason is that Dejoy has a conflict of interest. In fact, Louis Dejoy and his wife Aldona Wass reported between at least $30 million to just over $75 million in assets in a company called XPO Logistics, another company called JB Hunt, as well as UPS. Now, all of them, of course, are competitors with the post office. So, yeah, I think that's got definitely something to do with it, because the logic goes that if you kill or at least reduce the effectiveness of the post office, then you can make the argument to privatize it or reduce the role that the post office has. And in that case, allow these companies to take over some of that business that is normally handled by the post office. And that, of course, makes them money. I could see a situation in which the post office only exists to cover rural areas, which they take a loss on. And, because UPS and the other places won't go because it's far too expensive. That rural delivery, as I said before, costs the most to do. And so people won't do it. These companies won't do it. They're not going to take that loss to deliver medicine out to rural Timbuktu, right? And so if they actually did do this, then they would have to charge an arm and a leg, which is something that people wouldn't be able to do, right? People in these rural areas. And so there's money to be made in undermining the post office and taking over the more profitable areas the post office has done and relegating the post office itself to only being able to do the rural routes that the corporations refuse to do. And so I could definitely see that, okay, or more privatization. And so here's the thing. This is why people like Dejoy can't answer a simple question about what the agency does, because they don't care. They don't care what the agency does. They have one purpose, one task, and that is to basically break down that agency from the inside and allow competitors to make money, right? Because if they make money, Dejoy makes money. And so understand that, by the way, this is how a lot of Trump nominees have operated in the past. A lot of them come from private industry, and they bring conflicts of interest with them. They bring in corruption. They're bringing crime. And so they're not the best people. And they're not the best people that are suited to run these agencies, these services that are supposed to be accessible to every single person. I mean, could you imagine living in a world, because I certainly could, where you have to have a subscription to get your mail? Just $29.95 a month, and you get mail delivered to your house. Is that the future you guys want? Because that's the future Republicans want to bring us. And so that's it. The reaction from Democrats was great. As you saw, Katie Porter, I love when Katie Porter is on the scene. She's on the case, right? Where she actually gets to ask questions. And it became a little combative, where she had to keep reclaiming her time from Dejoy. And afterwards, she says, quote, let's see, it's bad enough the Postmaster General doesn't know the basics of his agency. But to laugh off his ignorance, this isn't a joke for the millions of Americans who rely on the U.S. Postal Service. there's more. Let's see. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Carol Maloney said that Dejoy's refusal to clearly commit to handing over his calendars and documents about Postal Service operations during questioning was grounds for subpoena. So they said, we're going to subpoena you if you fail to comply with our requests. And several members of the Oversight Committee, including Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, urged Dejoy to resign during the hearing as he struggled to answer for his changes at the Postal Service. Quote, at best, these actions represent irresponsible leadership from a novice who has absolutely no business leading a government agency, Presley says. At worst, they're cruel, unethical, and anti-democratic. So the squad at work. And so, look, a lot of establishment Democrats wonder, why do people really like the squad? Why did they get reelected? I don't understand. It's because of this. It's because of things like this. And here you had establishment, by the way, media figures, even Kevin Drum, saying, you know what, we should privatize the post office. Maybe it's a pretty good idea to take a conservative idea and a conservative priority and make it happen. No, that's not a good idea. And so people agree with the squad more than they agree with supposed liberal media figures and media in liberal politicians, right? And so, and I mentioned liberal politicians. Representative Jimmy Gomez said he originally wanted to avoid calling on Postmaster General Dejoy to resign, right? But he said he changed his mind. Quote, I do think now it's time for you to resign, not because necessarily there's this grand political conspiracy, but just the incompetence that we've seen when it comes to the Postal Service. You didn't know that people that Donald Trump appoints are incompetent? I mean, it's not necessarily incompetence because of incompetence. It's incompetence because of corruption, right? Yeah, if you don't really care about the agency that you've been put in favor of, when you've always been opposed to it, when you make more money off, privatization of these services, then you're not going to care about the operations, and that's it. And so, understand that incompetence comes with the territory. That said, I'm not saying that Louis Dejoy is somebody like Rick Perry, who really was generally a dumb person. I mean, this is a guy who was put in command of the Department of Energy, right, as the head of that agency. He didn't know that was he didn't know what they did. He thought they were just in charge of drilling oil and stuff. No, one of the primary duties of the Department of Energy is actually dealing with nuclear weapons, right? And nuclear power. And so he's like, I didn't know that. Yeah, no kidding. Again, that was one of the departments that he famously had his oops moment, right? Where he couldn't name it. He's like, I want to get rid of 3 different departments. The Department of oops. Yeah, oops indeed. That guy was literally in charge of our nuclear stockpile. And then, of course, there's Ben Carson, who's just basically sleeping at HUD. And that's it. Just 2 examples out of many. Head of the EPA, another great example from the chat here. But, okay, with that established, right, they are competent. And that's kind of the whole point. You want to run an agency to the ground, you just pick somebody who doesn't give a damn. But what about that vast conspiracy? That kind of stuck out to me. What is Jimmy Gomez talking about? Well, the supposed conspiracy is slowing down the mail to help Donald Trump in the election during a pandemic that is going to involve millions of additional mail-in ballots. Katie Porter alluded to this, right? When she asked about how many ballots, are how many mail-in ballots usually get sent through the mail every election, right? Again, this election, there's about to be tens of millions of more of those ballots going out because of the safety involving coronavirus, right? And so, well, that supposed conspiracy is that Dejoy is there and he's going to slow down the mail to make sure that the ballots don't get there on time, handing Donald Trump a win. But understand that's not really a conspiracy theory. I mean, Donald Trump pretty much admitted that, yeah, I would like to slow down the post office to make sure that mail-in ballots don't work, right? I mean, he told Fox News, if we do mail-in voting at levels that the Democrats want, a Republican would never win an election again. So not really a conspiracy, right? Really, in reality, it's people with money and their political futures at stake. And I would actually argue that Donald Trump has more at stake than just money, than just re-election. He might legitimately be worried that he's going to get arrested for financial crimes if he's not president. So again, not a conspiracy when the president blurts it out, as well as the fact that numerous Republicans over the years have also blurted it out. I mean, you can go back to the 1980s with Paul Ryrick, the godfather of the modern conservative movement. I always love showing the video, which ironically I don't have right now set up, but you guys have seen it plenty enough before, where he said, look, I don't want people voting. The less people vote, the more we win. That's kind of their justification, the internal justification of let's do voter suppression, right? This is why they do voter IDs. This is why they do voter purges, right? Of black people from the rolls. It's been proven that they've done that. Why they remove polling stations in minority areas. It's not that they're underused. Why is it that every single election, there seems to be these places that get slammed, right? With people waiting for 4 to 6 hours, right? In order to vote. It's because they remove polling stations. It's because they try to suppress the vote. There's no doubt in my mind that's what they're doing. And the evidence is all around. It's not a conspiracy. It's actually happening right in front of our faces. So I always have a problem with that, okay? And so we know what they're doing. This guy's helping himself, and he's helping the Republican Party continue to try to win elections. So he and the donors can make more money off the American taxpayer. So, as I said before, that's the problem. That's why he should resign. And other progressives have echoed that. For example, Bernie Sanders. Sanders tweeted this: Postmaster General needs to resign or be removed from office now. We need a Postmaster General who will work overtime to ensure the prompt delivery of mail, not a top Trump campaign contributor who is undermining the Postal Service and slowing down the mail. Dejoy must go. And by the way, speaking of, is Dejoy a Trump donor? Yes, he actually gave $1.2 million to the Trump Victory Fund. Back in 2016, he bankrolled Jeb Bush. So interesting juxtaposition there, with Jeb Bush, obviously. Supposed to be a sound effect. There we go. Boy, that was a fail. Technological fail. Nonetheless, bankroll, going from bankrolling Jeb Bush to bankrolling Donald Trump, but also raising millions of dollars, of course, for the Republican National Convention, and had also donated millions to Republican organizations and candidates. And so it's not like Dejoy doesn't have a political motive here for trying to slow down and prevent Democrat votes from being counted. Again, it wouldn't be a conspiracy if we didn't have or maybe it would be a conspiracy if we didn't have all this evidence that Republicans have been trying to block the vote for decades. That's been their plan, and that's how they continue to win. And so props to congressmen and women, of course, Katie Porter, AOC, the members of the squad, for exposing this guy for who he is. Somebody who is, ignorant, but on purpose, purposely ignorant, and somebody who's trying to destroy the post office for his own political and personal gain. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got the Liberty U story, and then we're going to talk about Jacob Blake. So we're going to have an update to that story as well. All right. So we'll be back in a minute. Stay right here, Round the Nation.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Why, you're getting nervous, man.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
All right, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so I want to read a couple of super chats before I get back into the show. Zach Sherman says this is for having to watch the RNC. I'm sorry. To be fair, I've been watching clips. So I'm not going to sit there and watch the entire thing because that's just disastrous. Torn Tokoroa says, stop screaming at me. I get it. Us blacks are scary. Jeez, here I thought heavy metal was loud. I only had my phone on quarter volume. Man, she's loud. I'm just saying, like, very angry. Adrian Bendenfield says, jury summons are going to be late as well. That's a good point. Jury summons, medication, people who might have gotten not gotten the stimulus check itself. I know it's amazing to think that there are people who still didn't get their stimulus checks. It's crazy. And then that's what they're trying to do. Destroy it for their own gain. Just like Republicans like to do a lot. Star Trek says, dead baby chicks, rotting fruit, medicine not mailed on time. Dejoy was put there to screw up the USPS. Barcode readers for sort machines were trashed. Yeah. And so I guess even if you wanted to put some of that stuff back, you might not be able to. It sucks. All right. So, I like to play that kill meat clip, right?
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Well, the next story kind of goes along with that. So, without further ado, we've got an update on the Liberty University story. You love this. All right. So previously, I talked about the allegations against Jerry Falwell Jr. He's president of Liberty University. There's a bit of an update, okay, which again makes this story that was already strange to begin with a little bit stranger. So now, following my report on yesterday, it was widely reported by a lot of outlets that Falwell Jr. had resigned as president of Liberty U. Now he comes out and says, actually, no, I didn't. Okay. In fact, he told Politico after Liberty U had confirmed his resignation, quote, I have not resigned. I will be on indefinite leave. So I'm not resigning, but I'm just never coming back. Indefinite leave. That's what that means. So does that mean you're resigning then? I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's almost as if it's that, Patrick and SpongeBob meme, right? With the card. I don't know if you guys know that. Memes. All right, anyway. So there's that, right? Is he resigning? Is he not resigning? What is going on here? Who's going to run Liberty University when he's gone / not gone, but actually gone? Who knows, right? There's that. But also there's a bigger revelation, and that's the fact that he might have actually been involved and knew about the affair that his wife was having and was participating. So now, I talked about this yesterday with my speculation, right? And so I just want to play that for you guys, just in case you didn't see that before.
What is the cost of a first-class postage stamp?
Sorry, wrong clip. Here's that video. The phrasing here is slightly odd. I mean, to me at least. That saying that very inappropriate personal relationship, something in which I was not involved in. Why would you need to add that? Obviously, nobody else thought that you were involved. Who thought that you were involved in an affair that your wife was having with the pool boy? Who thought that? Why would you need to bring that up? That's really weird. That's why I think, hey, you know what? If you have that position, you love getting involved in people's sex lives where you are not welcome. All right, well, hey, there's a story about your sex life, or I should say your lack of sex life. Then again, there is also a word for that. It's called being cucked. So Wright tends to use that quite a bit. But in this case, it's definitely applicable. I was right. I mean, look, that statement, kind of correct. Reuters reported on Monday that Falwell and his wife had begun an intimate relationship with their pool boy 8 years ago, who says they began to engage with him when he was just 20 years old. Quote, this is from Giancarlo Granda. This is the pool boy. And he said, Becky and I developed an intimate relationship, and Jerry enjoyed watching from the corner of the room. He enjoyed watching. So, okay, Jerry Falwell Jr. likes to watch the pool boy noodle his wife. Okay, so understand, right? That's more than I wanted to know, honestly. I think more than any of us wanted to know. Okay, but he was involved, according to Giancarlo. That was the truth that was going to come out. So now I thought maybe either he was, getting involved in like watching, being cucked, essentially, or maybe even jumping in on the action. No, just watching. Okay. He likes to watch, observe from afar, maybe in a corner, maybe in a closet. Not a metaphorical one, by the way, which I thought could have been the case. But okay. All right. So he's a cop. Allegedly. So the issue here, right, is and the entire, as I explained before, the entire point of talking about this is not to kink shame, right? It is to point out hypocrisy. He claims to be a morally superior person of faith, right? Because of his faith, right? And so you teach people to when you're in that position as head of Liberty University to look down on others, right? Who are quote unquote morally degenerate, right? Because they lead different, sexual lifestyles, members of the LGBT community, people who have affairs, because that's definitely what that is. And so if you do that, you're engaging in hypocrisy. And that is my main problem with people like Falwell Jr. I mean, you guys have probably noticed that it tends to be the most uptight supposed Christian that gets caught doing these things, right? And not only that, but I thought I did think it was pretty interesting that he threw his wife under that proverbial bus. That's just like totally not classy, especially since you were involved in it too. But then he probably enjoyed watching that from afar as well. But I guess the real question is, what's going to happen, right? What's going to happen to Falwell Jr.? What's going to happen with Liberty University? Right now, there's a disconnect between Falwell and the university. They said he offered his resignation. They accepted it. And then later on, he rescinded it and and basically pulled a Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not fucking leaving. Sorry, my wife really likes that movie. She watches it whenever it's on TV, so it's kind of in my head. But really though, what is going to happen here? Are they going to have to fire him? Are they going to have to, is he going to leave and then come back after like a few months and say, I can't believe how Jesus healed me, right? Wonderful. Maybe that's kind of like a guarantee because we are dealing with these, that kind of people. But I don't think, he's ever going to really see the light and see that, oh, it turns out I was wrong for judging other people and, not accepting people as they are and teaching them to hate. No, he's not going to do that. These people, again, rarely go and do that and drop their hypocrisy. But in the end, we'll have to see. I mean, the drama is nowhere near done when it comes to Jerry Falwell, and not by far. All right. Oh, geez. Yeah, Brad Bloom. Yeah, that's a great point from the chat here, saying people who demonize people are the loudest are themselves participants in whatever they're yelling about. Yeah, thou doth protesteth too much, methinks. That's what that, I mean, yeah, that's exactly what that means. His dad handed him a dynasty and he screws it away. Yeah, and it's all about, of course, hypocrisy, right? If you could just be, and this is my big thing for them, right? If they could only be honest with themselves about who they are and what they are, it's not like it's not 2020 and that most people are either accepting or they don't care, right? It's none of my business. For me, I literally don't care what you do in your fun time, right? In your own time with your wife and or the pool boy. Like, that's fine. Hey, if as long as it's consensual, as long as you're all having fun, that's all I care about, right? Like, okay, that's fine. It's consensual. Nobody needs to get involved. And that's it. And that's it. So I don't understand people who, do this and yet attack other people for no reason. It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Jacob Blake. Give you an update on that. With the shooting of Jacob Blake by police officers making national headlines just 2 days after it happened, Jacob Blake's father has finally decided to speak out. So now, of the 8 shots, I previously reported it as 7 because that's what we knew at the time. Blake Sr. told the Chicago Sun-Times, quote, "What justified all those shots? What justified doing that in front of my grandsons? What are we doing?" So now, understand, right, that what Jacob Blake was doing is what he was trying to break up a fight between 2 women, right? So now he was successful. He broke up the fight. Police came to the scene. He was walking to his SUV, got his shirt grabbed by an officer, and ended up being shot in the back 8 times in front of his family. So that's the situation, okay? So now Blake's partner, Lakeisha Booker, told NBC's Milwaukee affiliate, and what she did is that she filled in some of the details, right? She talked to WTMJ-TV and said that the couple's 3 children were in the backseat of the SUV when police shot him. Quote, "That man just literally grabbed him by his shirt and looked the other way and was just shooting him, with the kids in the back screaming. They start to wrestle," said another witness at the scene, who spoke on condition of anonymity. "The officer is punching him. 2 officers come to assist. They get him down on the curb behind his vehicle. Somehow he manages to stand up. They said he has a knife. All of the officers pull out their guns. One of the officers tells him, 'Get out of the car,' and he starts shooting. The witness said he never saw a knife." So, look, to me, that's... I don't know if you guys have ever seen South Park, but it's coming right for me. It's coming right for us, right? One of those things. It's coming right for us. I have no, I have no choice but to shoot him. Well, that's kind of like he's got a knife, or he's got a gun, or he's going for his waistband, right? In reality, he didn't have a knife. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers said on Monday that he's seen no information to suggest Blake had a knife or any other weapon on his person, but does say the case is still being investigated, right? So witnesses say didn't have a weapon, had no knife. So then why the justification? Why shoot him 8 times in the back? I mean, no threat to the police, right? Was getting beat on by police for no reason, right? Because I guess apparently, like, if you're a conservative, you think, oh no, if you disrespect the police whatsoever, if you decide not to submit 100% to the cops' game of Simon Says, right? And being treated as if you're a criminal when you haven't done anything wrong, then that is worthy of being executed. And that's basically what happens, right? So now, again, he wasn't under arrest. He didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't initially violent towards the police officer until the police officers were violent towards him, according to this one witness, right? So if the cop starts beating you up and you go to try to, block or defend yourself in some way, you're being assaulted for no reason, well, then they can use that as justification to murder you. And that seems to be what's happening here, right? So now his father said, quote, there are now 8 holes in my son's body and that he is now paralyzed from the waist down. So that's the situation, right? Look, this person could very well end up in a wheelchair, right? Paralyzed for the rest of his life, okay? For absolutely no reason. And in America, where we don't guarantee healthcare for people, that's kind of sort of a double whammy, right? It's even worse. Who's going to pay for those medical bills? Who's going to pay for that, right? Doctors don't even know that the injury is going to be permanent or not. So he could be paralyzed for the rest of his life. Even if he's not. Years of recovery, rehabilitation, constant care, right? The costs are going to be enormous. And right now, the costs are going to fall on him or his family. The only way to recoup that is through the police department of the city, which also means these police officers are going to end up costing the taxpayers of Kenosha and Wisconsin millions and millions of dollars, right? So this is what happens when you let police get out of control. Even if you don't care about black lives, right? Then, well, you should care about the costs. Police officers now are going to have to pay, if they take it to court and they sue and are successful, millions of dollars for this man's recovery and health problems for the rest of his life. I guess maybe that's why police are probably, and I know this is a morbid thing to say, but police and conservatives are probably like, darn, maybe they should have killed him. I mean, understand that that's what a lot of conservatives think. They don't mind when police kill black people and shoot black people. In fact, there are people that love it, that think it's a good thing. I mean, conservatives online are already looking for a way to justify what to us is an unjustifiable shooting. I mean, they're already looking up, did he resist arrest? Did he smoke pot? Because if you do that, I mean, that's worthy of murder, right? He shouldn't have been walking away. Shouldn't have wrestled with the cop. Why didn't he submit to the police officer and play Simon Says? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they're already saying. While his father is saying this, quote, I just want to put my hand on my son's cheek and kiss him on the forehead, and then I'll be okay. I'll kiss him with my mask. The first thing I want to do is touch my son. That's a father's pain, right? And the pain is real. Pain is real. And that's why these protests are happening, by the way. Because in those communities, they feel that pain, okay? And so that's why you have both peaceful and not so peaceful protests, okay? And understand that while I don't condone the not peaceful protest, I understand it. I get it. And also understand, right? As I mentioned before, I don't think Blake was supposed to survive this. He's lucky. It's almost a miracle he did. He was shot 8 times in the back, right in front of his children. Okay? In fact, according to his father, the police officers who shot Jacob were, quote, the flint as well as the gasoline, sparking the violence in Kenosha. Those police officers that shot my son like a dog in the street are responsible for everything that has happened in the city of Kenosha. My son is not responsible. My son didn't have a weapon. My son didn't have a gun. Understand, this is a reality, right, of black people in America. I wonder how much longer this is going to happen. I mean, the fact that this stuff like this is still happening, despite weeks of protests for Black Lives Matter, shows you that cops are going to learn. They haven't learned anything. Maybe they're not going to learn anything until we massively first defund them and hold them accountable for their actions. Until then, I don't see anything changing. All right. I don't have the video, Deva. I don't have the video. And I'm sure most of you have already seen it anyway. So, unfortunately, I don't have that ready or, on me at all. So, all right. That's all I got for you guys today. That's all I got time for anyway. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the super chats. Martin, it is racism That's definitely a part of it, a huge part of it. And I'm not disagreeing with that at all. They can get away with it. They can get away with it. Police are slave patrols. I've talked about this all the time. And so, let's see. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, guys. We'll see you all later. Sorry to end on such a bad note. But at least he's still alive. And I'm happy to see that he actually was able to survive. And hopefully he will get some measure of compensation, if not justice. And I think we're going to have to work a lot and a long time in order to make sure that everybody gets justice. So, all right, anyway. We'll see you guys later on.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Please clap.
Mike Pence, tolerate.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.